Federal Drive is presented by GEHA, Government Employees Health Association, proudly providing health and dental benefits to federal employees and their families. Visit GEHA.com.
The Trump administration scrapped this year's Federal Employee Viewpoint Survey. That's the government's signature assessment of trends in the federal workforce. But in the absence of FEVS, a new opportunity has emerged for federal employees to make their voices heard. Federal News Network's Drew Friedman got more from experts at the Partnership for Public Service, which has just launched its first ever Public Service Viewpoint Survey. Michelle LaMonte is Senior Vice President of Government Programs, and Max Steyer is the partnership's President and CEO.
The long and short of it is that we understood, as an organization that was for better government, stronger democracy, we understood that helping create a real-time performance metric was incredibly powerful for improving the performance of government. And that was the genesis of our best places to work rankings. And we actually helped get a law passed that requires that all, at least executive branch agencies conduct an annual employee survey. Understand that this was a very, very, fundamental insight and core project for the partnership, and we've been running it ever since. And a lot of agencies that are not even required by law to do this signed up, like the Government Accountability Office, GAO, and CBO, and all sorts of agencies, Smithsonian, et cetera. They wanted to participate. And we have found over time that it has been incredibly powerful as a tool for accountability and for guidance for agency leaders to better manage the organizations they're responsible for. What did we think when we heard that this administration wasn't going to do the survey? And the answer is we thought, that's terrible, because at a time of intense challenge for our federal government, this data is even more important than it ever has been before. And it's not just flying blind, it's flying blind in a hurricane. If the data were important in prior years, it's even more vital today when so much disruption and turmoil is occurring. And we also thought this was not going to ever be a question, because there's a law that Congress has passed and it requires that it be done. So, our answer was, this is essential to the good functioning of government in ordinary times, and even more important now. So this is important enough that even though we weren't planning on doing this, we were assuming that the government would do what it was required to do, we needed to step in.
Can you tell me a little bit more about what the process has been like, in the time from deciding that you were going to run your own survey here? What has the process been like determining what questions are going to be included on it, how you're going to conduct outreach to try to connect with federal employees and get them to fill it out?
When we made the decision as an organization to administer the Public Service Viewpoint Survey, we knew we wanted to have an advisory board of leadership luminaries and, respected academics and government leaders to help make sure that this process was rigorous and that it was fair and nonpartisan. So that was one of the first things that we did, was recruit an advisory board for this process. Then we took a look at the core FEVS questions, and there were over 90 in 2024. One of our goals was to pare those down significantly. It's been a barrier for many federal employees in the past. The survey was just too long. So we looked at those 90 plus core questions, decided which ones we thought were really relevant right now, and then added a few additional ones just that meet the particular moment in time. And so now we have about 23 core questions in addition to some eligibility and demographic questions. So again, we did some work on our own at the partnership, and then we relied on our advisory board to make sure that we felt like those were the right questions for the right moment. In terms of distribution, the partnership has a very wide and vast network, but we knew that our network wasn't enough. We knew that we had to partner with others to get the word out about the survey. So we have partners such as APGE, NTEU, the Federal Managers Association, and NIFI are partners of ours. They will be sending out the survey to their members Monday morning. And then we have other partner affinity groups and associations that have promised to put it in their newsletters. So it will go out to tens of thousands of federal employees using these partner organizations, and it will also be available on our website.
Are you at all working with agencies or with OPM? Are you making them aware that you are conducting this survey, and are you going to try to partner with them for outreach as well?
The obvious answer is that we had anticipated that OPM would be doing what they've done always to run the survey, and they've chosen not to. And therefore, we have informed them that we are going to do this on our own, and we would welcome if in fact they wanted to change their mind and do the survey themselves in real time, we'd welcome that decision. But we are doing this on our own only because they've told us they're not doing it. So it's not likely that they'll either change their mind or help us do it, or else they would have done it themselves.
And we have offered, Drew, to share our findings with OPM, and we have always been really open and transparent with federal agencies and done briefings with them on their data, and we will continue to do that. So any agency leader that wants to understand their data, we will sit down with them after we've gone through all of our findings and analysis and work with them so that they can use this information as a management tool as it was intended to be used.
And just to underscore what Michelle just said, and I noted earlier, a lot of agencies that were not required by the law to actually participate chose to do so on their own. And we would welcome that again. Like, our goal here is to provide critical insight into what is happening to our government from the most important resource that exists, the federal workforce. And the intent is ultimately to have a better run government and better outcomes for the American people. It is a giant mistake to fly blind, and that is what occurs when you're not collecting this information. And as I noted earlier, an even bigger mistake when we're flying through a hurricane.
And, just knowing how every year when FEVS is typically administered, I mean, they're getting feedback, they're getting responses from basically every agency, every subcomponent. It's a very widespread survey. So I'm wondering at this point, like with the partnerships that you guys are forming and everything, how confident do you feel that you're going to get that same depth of survey responses? And what happens if, for example, you don't get a lot of responses from a certain agency or a certain subcomponent?
It's a great question, and that's why we're trying to really be intentional about partnering with a lot of different associations and affinity groups to try to get out to the broader workforce. We'll have to see what the data shows us. So we don't want to make any promises right now into what kinds of findings we will have, because that will be a consideration. Obviously, we'll have to look at the statistical significance of findings from certain agencies. So all of that's to be determined, but we will be tracking data as it comes. The survey is not going to close until December 19th. So we'll be looking at responses as they come in and see if we have big gaps from different agencies, and continue to work with our partners to try to get the word out where we see that there might be some big voids.
And to be very clear, the best choice would be for the government to continue to do what the law requires, and it has done, for many, many years in a row here now. We are doing this because the government has chosen not to follow the law and conduct a critical survey. So we are not going to, in any way, shape, or form, completely replicate or replace what the federal government has way more resources and access to be able to do. So this is not the first choice, it's the necessary choice. As Michelle noted, we've not had to do this ever before. We've never done it before, but we believe that any guidance we can provide is better than nothing, which is where we start from without our doing this.
And from a data comparison perspective, I mean, I know the partnership in the Best Places to Work series, for example, you compare year to year, like different trends to different agencies. Is that something that's going to be possible from just a data perspective? Like, is this something where you can compare answers here to FEVS responses from past years?
So we will ask the 3 questions that are used for the Best Places to Work index score. We will ask them in the survey. Whether it will be comparable, again, will depend upon what kind of response we get. So we're hopeful that it will be, but we just don't know at this point in time.
You mentioned you kind of looked at like areas where maybe you wanted to add a couple questions, take some out. Can you give a couple examples of what types of topics you are adding in or removing.
So a couple of examples are we are asking a couple of questions on artificial intelligence, just because that is such an important topic right now, and it is nonpartisan. Both parties are very interested in that. So we're asking some questions on artificial intelligence, and we're asking some questions comparing this year versus last year in terms of, how are you describing your performance and like in terms of delivering services to your stakeholders and fulfilling stakeholder needs. There typically isn't a comparison of one year versus another, but because there have been such dramatic changes, 2025 versus 2024, we wanted to call out a couple of specific things and ask the federal workforce, how are you feeling in these specific areas this year versus last year? So those are two examples. But again, 16 of the 23 core questions are the same. And that was important to us because we wanted to make sure that we kept as much of the most important FEVS questions as possible to give credibility to the Public Service Viewpoint Survey. The survey will be open until midnight, December 19th. So we want to give plenty of time for people to fill out the survey.
We are doing everything we can to make it safe for federal employees to participate. So we understand this is a difficult environment, but we have lots of safety protocols to make sure that that federal employees can do something important, which is to aggregate their voice so that leaders can make better choices and the public can have a better understanding about what's happening in our government. But I do think that, that underlying that core effort on our part is really key.
There is such a fear of retaliation right now with the federal workforce. It was a core consideration for us as we tried to design the survey and think about how to get it out to federal employees. Which is why we decided to use personal email addresses instead of government email addresses. But that is a huge fear right now. And so keeping their information confidential is very important to us. And we will take the utmost protection of the information that they share.
Do you also have a sense of, when the results might be released? Like how long would that typically take?
We're planning for a spring release. We hope to have maybe some early top line results available before that. So not a full release, but just what are the headlines? What does the best places to work index score look like? Timing still TBD, because again, we don't know what responses we will get. But the hope is to have a top line early in 2026 and then a release of best places, whatever that might look like this year, early spring.
What do you hope will come out of this survey?
We really hope that this will be an opportunity for the federal workforce so that we can hear their voice. There's been a void. We don't know how they're coping with the current management decisions. And so it's an opportunity for us to hear their voice, for us to know and the public to know how to use that data and hopefully make data-driven public policy decisions. So we are very hopeful that federal agencies will partner with us when we have the data and that we can help inform better decisions when it comes to managing the federal workforce.
Michelle LaMonte is Senior Vice President of Government Programs, and Max Steyer is the President and CEO at the Partnership for Public Service. They're speaking there with Federal News Network's Drew Friedman. You can find Drew's exclusive story on the survey at federalnewsnetwork.com.